Erev Tov, good evening. Let us continue in our Aggadeta series. We are in the Gemara on page Gimel Amud Aleph, the 3a, in whichever Talmud you're using. Or if you're using the En Yaakov, you're going to be seeing the letter Gimel at the top left of the page. If you go to the Zoom invitation, you will find two different PDFs attached. And you can use either one of those. If you recall, we were discussing, and I'll repeat this briefly because I want to start answering some of the questions that you had in front of us. Ad sof hashmoa rishona. Rabbi Eliezer says that you can say Shema Yisrael from when 3 stars come out until the end of the first watch. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Mai kasavar Rabbi Eliezer, the Gemara asks, what was the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer? I kasavar shalosh mishmarot haveh halayla. If his opinion is that the night is made up of 3 parts, 3 mishmarot, Lema ad arba sha'ot, he should have told us that we have until 4 hours, not that we have until the end of the first watch. Vi kasavar arba mishmarot haveh halayla, and if his opinion was that the night is made up of 4 parts, Lema, he should have told us ad shalosh sha'ot, that we have until 3 hours. I'm assuming that if you're in the Shiur, you reviewed this Gemara a few times until you came here today. So I'm reading superficially because last week I explained. Rather, le'olam kasavar shalosh mishmarot haveh halayla. Rather, of course, the only opinion of Rabbi Eliezer is that the night is made up of 3 watches. V'ha kamashmalan, de'ika mishmarot barakia, v'ika mishmarot ba'ara. That Rabbi Eliezer is teaching us that there are mishmarot in heaven, and there are mishmarot down on earth. So why is he teaching us? Meaning, what's the question here that the Gemara has? The Gemara says, if Rabbi Eliezer says that the night is made up of 3 parts, that means there's 4 hours in each part. He shouldn't have told us until the end of the first watch. He could have just said until the end of 4 hours. And if he believes the night is made up of 4 hours, then he shouldn't have told us until the end of the first watch, 4 parts. He would have told us the night is until 3 hours we have time to read Shema Yisrael. So if we know that Rabbi Eliezer holds that the night is made up of 3 parts, and that means that we have 4 hours, then what is the purpose of Rabbi Eliezer telling us that you have until the end of the first watch? What does the Gemara answer? It comes to teach us something unique. What does it teach us?
There's something happening up in heaven that's parallel to what's happening down here.
Very good. Something is happening above, and there's something on earth that you can see that tells you what is happening above. That's why he uses the language of there are until the end of the first watch. He wants to show you that you as a human being living in this realm, you have the ability to discern when the end of the first watch is. Something is happening here. So far, we're on the same page? Yes? Let's continue. The Tanya, we learn. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Eliezer says, Shalosh mishmarot haveh halayla. So Rabbi Eliezer himself is the one who says the night is made up of 3 parts. Ve'al kol mishmar u'mishmar yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'shoeg ka'ari. That in every one of these watches, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and he roars like a lion. Shelemah, like it says in Yirmiyah, chapter 25, Adonai mimarom yishag, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu from above will roar. Umimaon kodsho yiten kolo, and from his holy place he will, from his holy abode he will raise his voice. Sha'og yishag al navehu, roar does he roar over his home, or surely he shall roar over his home. V'siman hadavar, and here, one of the signs to this, meaning one of the ways you can know, mishmara rishona, at the end of the first watch, chamor noer, I didn't say that. In the first watch, a donkey brays, noer, remember? Yes. Shiniya, in the second watch, Kilavim tzoakim, the dogs bark. Shidishit, in the third, Tinok yonek mishede imo. A baby nurses from his mother. V'isha mesaperet im ba'ala. And a woman speaks with her husband. So those are the three signs. The first sign, what's the first sign?
The donkey.
The donkey braying. The second sign?
The dog's howling.
The dog's howling. And the third?
The baby nursing and the mother.
And the mother talks to who?
The husband.
Her husband. Very good. Those are the three watches. Very good. So now the Gemara has another question. I'm at the top of page Hey in my and Yaakov, but if you're using a regular Gemara, you're in the middle of page 3a. My kachashiv Rabbi Eliezer. What is the logic here of Rabbi Eliezer? Kehillat mishmarot kachashiv. If he tells us that at the beginning of every watch, one of these signs happens. So the beginning of the night, the donkey brays. The beginning of the second third of the night, the dogs howl. In the beginning of the third part of the night, the baby starts talking, nursing, and the mother starts talking. Kehillat mishmara rishona simana lamali. If that is the case, so why do we need the first sign? Meaning, why do we need the donkey at the beginning of the night? It's nighttime. Once it becomes night, you don't need a donkey to bray. You know that the watch has begun because it's dark outside. So why does he need that? Isof mishmarot kachashiv. And if he is of the opinion that this refers to there's something happening at the end of the first third of the night, at the end of the second third of the night, at the end of the third third of the night, sof mishmara acharona siman alamali himamahu. Why do I need a sign at the end of the third part? That's already morning. I don't need anything to tell me that it's morning. So if you tell me it happens at the beginning of the night, at the beginning of every watch, I don't need the first one. If you tell me it happens at the end of every watch, I don't need the last one. So what is Rabbi Eliezer telling us? Ela, rather, chashiv sof mishmara rishona. There is something that happens at the end of the first third. Utchilat mishmara acharona. And there's something that happens at the beginning of the last third. Ve'emtzaita. And in the middle of the middle one, midnight, there is a sign. And I told you already then that there's a reason for having, who cares about the middle of the middle? The middle of the middle, there's many halachot connected to midnight, so it helps to know when midnight is. V'i ba'it ema. Kuloho sof mishmarot kachashiv. V'chi tema acharona lo tzarich. And if you tell me that Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that it happens at the end of every part of the night, so the end of the first third, at the end of the second third, at the end of the third third, one of these signs happens. And you're telling me acharona lo tzarich, you don't need the last one. Lemay nafka mina. Why do I need the last one? Lemikre kiryat shema leman degane bevayit afel. This helps a person who reads kiryat shema in a dark house. Velo yada zeman kiryat shema emat. And he does not know when the time for kiryat shema is. Oh, we're going to have to talk about that. So if a person lives in a dark home, v'lo yada zeman kriyat shema emat, and he doesn't know what time it is to say Shema, what time you say Shema. Kevan d'isha mesaperet im ba'ala, once a woman begins to speak with her husband, v'tinok yonek mishedei imo, and a baby nurses from his mother, lekum v'likre. Now he knows the time to get up and to read. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Shemuel amar Rav. Rabbi Yitzchak, the son of Shemuel, says in the name of Rav, Shalosh mishmarot heve halayla. There are 3 watches in the night. V'akol mishmar u'mishmar, and in every one of those watches, Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'shoeg ka'ari. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and he roars like a lion. V'omer, and he says, Oy, and I told you there's different nuschot here, I'm just going to read what's in front of me. Oy labanim sha'bavonotehem echavti et beti. Woe to the sons who because of their sins I destroyed my home. V'sarafti et hechali, and I burnt my hechal. V'higleti et banai leven hagoyim, and I exiled my sons among the nations. Now Marlene was so kind as to send us a list of questions, which I printed, but I believe that I conveniently left them on the table in my home.
You sent us an email with them.
I know I sent them to you, but I didn't send it to myself.
Oh, I'll send it to you now.
Yeah, but my iPad has broken, so I'm borrowing Elchanan's iPad for the time being. Let me see if I could pull them up in my own. Yeah, it's in the Google Classroom. Okay, we're going to start answering these questions. Okay, one at a time, we're going to start answering these questions. Yes, I don't have them exactly in front of me, but I sent them out to you so you could have them in front of you. All right, together, I'm learning with you from my notes. So I asked you a question over there about the word ashmurot, watches. Thank you to Marlene for typing up the questions. They are in your Google Classroom. If you look in the Meiri in his commentary on Berachot, Dibur hamatchil belashon, or belashon. If you see here, the Meiri is one of my favorite Chachamim. He's a very unique French Chacham that unfortunately is not studied as much as he should be. Studied very much, but not properly. He mentions that you find the term ashmurot, many times throughout the Tanakh. Did anybody find any places in the Tanakh with this term ashmurah or ashmurot? Ashmoret?
You see it all over Kehillat.
All over Tehillim, you're right. Anyone have a reference in the Mikra itself, in the Chumash?
Ashmurah.
Ashmoret is the one that I found.
Oh, Shmoret. You find a lot in Shemot.
Very good, very good. Shemot Yudalid, Shemot 14:24. Bashmoret Boker, it says there. In the morning Ashmoret. Yeah, that's very good in Shemot. Very good, Rabbi Yosef. Tehillim, Kuf Yutet, for example. In Kuf Yutet, it says Kadmu Enai Ashmurot. Yeah, over there again you find the word Ashmurot. Chazal used the word Ashmurah also here. Now, where we're studying, and also in Yoma, on page Chaf Amud Aleph, you find again the use of Ashmurah, Ashmurot. There's it's a curiosity. I don't have an answer for why. But normally we say, you see here, we say the word Chachamim switch over from Ashmurah, Ashmurot, to Mishmar, Mishmeret, Mishmarot. I don't know why they sometimes use the word Ashmurah, sometimes Mishmarot or Ashmurot. I don't know why they switch. But the individual mishmeret is normally in plural mishmarot. That's normally how it is. But we find also here especially that Chachamim are using mishmar or mishmara, and they're saying mishmerot also. So there's sometimes a little bit of a different use, but I don't know why. I just wanted to show you that there are different words that are used throughout the Torah, throughout the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim, and especially in the writings of Chachamim, and they're slightly different, but they're all referring to the same thing. So what exactly is a mishmeret? Exactly mishmeret, the Tosfot Yom Tov quotes Rashi, and Rashi says that anybody who is memuneh al tafkid, anybody who is given any type of job, you have a job, that job is called your mishmar, your mishmeret. So this term, like we use the word watch, we called it a watch. We mentioned there are heavenly angels that have a job, so because it's a job, the Kohanim have a job, the angels have a job, those are called mishmarot. Mishmar means a watch, a guard. It's something that you're doing. The chizkuni. Chizkuni is one of the Rishonim. In the book of Shemot, in Pasuk Yudalad Chavdalad, so 14:24. The chizkuni says the word mishmeret also means something else. You want to read this with me? If you look in the next section of your Gemara, so right after the story in En Yaakov, there's a story here that it's not time for us to learn this story. Not time for us to learn the story, but let's read the beginning of it. So if you're in the En Yaakov, you're going to look on page Vav. If you're in your Gemara, it's still in the middle of page 3a. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, Pa'am achat haiti mehalech baderech. One time, I was walking along the road. This is who's telling the story? Rabbi Yosef. Don't tell me Rabbi Yossi. There's no Yossi. Yosef, this is his name. Yossi is your friend who sells you shawarma in the shuk. I don't know who Yossi is. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, Pa'am achat haiti mehalech baderech. One time I was walking along the road. ונכנסתי לחורבה אחת מחורבות ירושלים להתפלל. And I entered one of the ruins of Yerushalayim to pray. ובא אליהו זכור לטוב, and Eliyahu Hanavi, may he be blessed, remembered for a blessing, appeared to me. ושמר לי על הפתח, and he waited for me by the door. So imagine you're walking along the road. You need a place to pray Amidah, and you find an old building that the nations of the world ruined. The haters of Israel ruined this building. So you go inside to pray. You want a quiet place to pray. As he was praying, Eliyahu Navi came, v'shamar li ala petach. What is shamar li? Rashi writes, v'shamar, v'himtin, and he waited for me. כמו לא יאמר אדם לחברו שמור לי. Okay, this is one I wanted to show you. Here, then. וכמו ואביו שמר את הדבר. Like we find in Berachot 37. What does it say, ואביו שמר את הדבר? Which pasuk is this? What is it referring to? Very good. Yeah, right? That his father is keeping this to himself, or he's waiting, or this term, hamtana. Yes? So here you find, the Chizkuni says, and like I told you in Shmot, the Chizkuni says you find the word mishmar or mishmeret doesn't necessarily mean a watch, it also means it's something that people are waiting for. How does that fit in here? The mishmarot, every watch, the angels are waiting for when the opportunity will come, when will be their time to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Remember we said that at every change of the guards, the angels praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the angels are mishmeret, they're waiting in order to have the opportunity to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why they're referred to as mishmarot. Yeah? So two different understandings of the word mishmar or mishmeret. Now, I was trying to find a pshat significance. What do I mean pshat? I am going to have a lot of things to tell you afterwards about why the night is broken up into 3, why the night is broken up into 4, from the Mekubalim, from the Philosophim, from the Hasidim. I didn't want to go there yet. I wanted something al pi pshat. And you know what? I found it in the most unusual place. In the writings of Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, alav shalom, in his notes on the Gemara, he writes something which doesn't have a source. I wish it would have a source. I couldn't find the source for it. But he says that Chachamei Israel are having a conversation about how many watches the night has, because like we went, these are watches that happen above, things happen below. What is happening below? Harav Steinsaltz writes that the Greek army, they separated their shifts into 3. There are 3 shifts in the Greek army. The Romans, on the other hand, they separated their shifts into 4. And Rav Steinsaltz suggests that Chachmei Israel are really asking a question. So now, based off of Jewish law, not influenced by the Greeks or not influenced by the Romans, what is Jewish tradition into how we break up a time? Is it into 3 or is it into 4? And that's the conversation really that's being had here on a Peshat level. I'm not telling you that that's actually what they're discussing, but there is an idea of 3 watches versus 4 watches. You know certain things. You know how things work in certain countries. They're natural to you that they work that way. So by the Jews, there's in their consciousness a Greek history and a Roman history, and we're trying to figure out which one is ours. Which system is our system? And I'm just going through the sugya here, al pi pashat. I want to show you things that are important to pick up on. Yeah, you can't read a Gemara and just fly through it. I don't know, for the life of me, how someone does Daf Yomi and understands anything they're studying. But there's value. There's value to learning big chunks of Torah at once, because you cover ground and you remember. It's the truth is only if you remember things. If you don't have a good memory, not everyone is blessed with a memory to remember everything they studied 20 years ago. You're flying at a pace that is, it's almost not normal. I used to think people did an hour and a half of Daf Yomi, they finish a page of Gemara. Today I hear a 5-minute Daf Yomi podcast, 15-minute Daf Yomi video. How do you finish a Daf? You can't even do Daf in an hour and a half. How are you going to do it in 15 minutes? The highlights of the Daf? Let me give you a suggestion. You want to study Talmud? Study Talmud. Don't study all of the Masechtot that have no connection to your life. Just cut them out. You want a few Masechtot? Take Masechet Berachot. Take Masechet Shabbat. Take Masechet Megillah. You want Ta'anit? Fine. Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Okay. I just gave you now, I told you Megillah, Sukkah, a few Masechtot that are important for you. And spend 7.5 years studying those few Gemarot properly. Learn them the Halacha, learn the Rif, learn the Ran, learn the Rambam, learn the Rosh, come down to Shulchan Aruch, learn the Bet Yosef, and then you'll know some Masechtot, you'll know Halacha well, you'll know all of the Aggadot that are mentioned inside of those Gemarot. What more do you want from your life? Why take 7.5 years, spending most of your time learning things you will not remember, but you didn't even have to remember in the first place? My advice, but who's asking me? V'al kol mishmar. Do you know that we have Chachamim in the times of the Rishonim? The times of the Rishonim that were asked questions. I don't want to mention the names of the Rishonim because by today's Orthodox standards, they would be considered Amei Haaretz. Certain Rishonim who said, in our yeshiva, we never studied that order of Mishnayot and Talmud. We never studied it. Where did this idea, you have to know the whole Shas, come from? You want to know everything? Of course, everybody wants to know everything. If you look at the beginning of Chovot HaLevavot, the author of Chovot HaLevavot, he mentions there a story about a Chassid. Now, whether when he mentions a story about a Chassid is referring to himself or he's referring to somebody else, you already can figure that out on your own. He has a student who asks him, in the words of the Chovot HaLevavot, a question regarding Gitin, Shelo Matzui Klal, a purely theoretical question in the laws of Gitin. What do I mean, a purely theoretical question? We made a list of 13 questions last week. I'll make you a list of 100 questions Orthodox yeshiva would ask in today's world. 100 questions. All of them, the answers mean nothing to you and the questions are useless. What do you spend your time learning in yeshiva? People, once was Hara Peretz, we went to a bar mitzvah of a boy. At the age of 13, he finished the whole Shas. Hara Peretz said about him after he spoke, he said, this young boy is a baki b'Shas, ve'am ha'aretz b'yadut. He's an expert in Shas and an ignoramus when it comes to Judaism. Who asked you to finish the whole Shas by the time you were 13? Why? For what value? I know what I'm saying sounds different. So the 100 questions that are asked, the Ramchal writes in his introduction to Misat Yesharim, Pilpulim shelo nitchayavnu bahem. These are pilpulim, thoughts that we're not obligated in. There's no mitzvah to study. It's not called learning Torah. So back to the Chovot HaLevavot. Baal Chovot HaLevavot says that this rabbi, this chassid, when he was asked by his student this question, his rabbi told him, I am learning Torah for 35 years now. And I have never in my life had an extra moment to waste asking the question that you've asked. Listen carefully. In today's modern educational system, this would be considered a rude teacher, disrespectful. We'd fire them and destroy their career. This rabbi is not making fun of his student's question. He's saying it's a good question. But I didn't finish studying all of the Torah that I have to know before I'm going to start answering the questions I don't have to know. You have a limited time on earth. You have to use the amount of time that you have on earth to study things that are actually important to your life. You don't have time to do everything. There are some people, they want to be a doctor and a lawyer and an accountant and a nurse, and they want to be a professional football player, and they want to go skiing, and they want to be a pilot, and slow down. It's wonderful to want to do all of those things. But you don't have to do all of those things. Choose 1 or 2 or 3 things you know how to do well, and then you live the good life. Why your whole life you don't know how to prioritize the things that are good for you, that are important for you? We have the same problem in our Judaism. We have a limited amount of time on earth to learn Torah. Why are we wasting our time learning things we don't need to learn? Let's continue. Valkol mishma. What I mean to tell you is, you cannot learn Daf Yomi if you don't have the time to sit down and analyze the words of the Talmud. Every word. Why did Chachamim use these words? Valkol mishma. Why does it say, and on every watch? And what was the question I asked you? Instead of saying what? During every watch. Bechol mishma. Why did Chachamim say ve'al kol mishmar and not bechol mishmar? The Siftei Chachamim writes 2 answers. 1, derech kavod. It's out of honor to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he is above the angels. This watch is referring to angels. He's above the angels. He's not with the angels, he's above them. Al kol mishma. On top of every watch, not in the midst of every watch. The second answer, that the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who he's roaring now, this voice is louder. It's overpowering the voice of the angels. So another way, al kol mishma, not in, above. I ask you a next question. What is the significance of Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu sitting down. Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Magid Ta'aluma. Who knows who wrote the book Magid Ta'aluma?
Say it again, what was the title?
There's a book called Magid Ta'aluma. He's not a Sephardic Chacham, so if you don't know him, it's okay in terms of Sephardic knowledge, but you might need to know him in terms of your Hasidic knowledge. Rabbanit, who wrote the book Magid Ta'aluma? We'll stamp the Rabbanit. Okay, I'm going to ask this question. Who wrote the book Bnei Yisachar? Or as the Hasidim call it, the Bnei Yisachar. Where's the Rabbanit now? She knows the answer to this question.
I know that too, I forgot. Wow. I'm not the book.
Oh, okay. Bnei Yisachar is written by a Hasidic Rebbe from the town of Dinov, otherwise known as the Dinover Hasidim, Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Shapira of Dinov. He's a fascinating Hasidic rabbi, obviously a Mekubal. He wrote a number of works that are very Kabbalistic and cryptic in that regard, but he has a commentary on the Talmud. And this commentary on the Talmud is called Magid Ta'aluma. In Magid Ta'aluma, Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch of Dinov, Shapira, he writes, why does it say Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and roars. What does that mean? Very good. Let me ask you this question. If you were right now walking down the street and you stubbed your toe, you'd scream? You'd make some kind of sound? Yes. Would you first sit down and then scream? That's not a natural way to get hurt and scream. Says Magid Ta'aluma, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not crying out of some random stab of pain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's b'mitkaven, it's b'hachana, it's something planned. HaKadosh Baruch Hu plans, right now I'm sitting down, and obviously we're not sitting, but the term sitting down refers to something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with intention. It's not a cry out of weakness. It's a cry that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does because right now, this is the time to scream over something. And it's something that happens consistently. It's not sporadically. It's not every once in a while HaKadosh Baruch Hu screams. It roars. It's consistently with intent. It happens on a schedule. Now, when we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars like a lion, I asked you, what does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars like a lion? And I think the first and most important thing is to say that Rav Hai Gaon writes, and it's important to know, that all of this is a mashal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't roar. He doesn't roar like a lion. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not sitting on a throne somewhere. There's none of this is happening in the sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars like a lion. It's not what it means. Rather, Chachamim are teaching us things through these words. The Maharsha mentions it's very simple. The Pasuk says in Yirmiyahu, what did the Pasuk say? Read it to me. Adonai mimaro mishag. HaKadosh Baruch Hu from above roars. Umimon kodsho yiten kolo. And from his from his holy abode, he raises his voice. Sha'og yishag al navehu. He roars over his home. The Mikra uses the word, the Yirmiyahu uses the word yishag, she'aga. She'aga, let me ask you a question. Which animal barks? Which animal barks?
A lion. Barks.
A dog. Which animal meows? A cat. Very good. Yeah. Which animal? I don't know. That sounds animals make. Which animal chirps? Which animal? A bird. Very good. Yeah, you gotta understand. Which animal is the shoeg? Only an animal. Shoeg is a lion. Now, could other animals? It could be. Could be there are places in the Tanakh where other things roar. But says the Maharsham that many places throughout the Tanakh, you find that the word shaga is this roar of a lion. So therefore, when Navi Yirmiyahu uses this term, sha'og, yishag, then it's obvious to the Gemara that he's roaring like a lion. They didn't make that up. It's coming from the proof text that they're using. Magid Taluma, the same Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch of Dinov, he writes what's unique about the roar of a lion is that a lion doesn't roar because he's scared. A lion doesn't roar because he's weak. A lion roars because he's strong. A lion roars to scare the living daylights out of you. That's why a lion roars. Other animals maybe chirp to get attention. Other animals do a lion roars because he's strong. It's a sign of strength. And it's something that puts fear of you. There was a video going around last year about a guy who went on a hike. And as he was hiking, a mountain lion found him. And so he started walking away, doing all the right things. And the mountain lion, I think for 1.5 miles, didn't stop chasing him. Roaring, it has a crazy way that it runs to a person. Flapping arms, crazy. It's a lion, mamash a lion, living in America, not in Africa. That lion roars and you feel the fear of God inside of you. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I heard a lion roar at me, already probably I would have a ticket to, I didn't have to buy me, just I'm already don't Olam Haba. So says the Bnei Sachar that HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars to instill fear in who? This roaring instills fear in the Ummot HaOlam, in the nations of the world. You destroyed my Beit HaMikdash. I didn't forget it for you. My children are in Galut. The only reason the Jewish people have survived Galut is because over and over HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars to scare the Goyim away from us. It's a protection he does of us. Yeah, we don't have a Beit HaMikdash. Yes, we're not in Eretz Israel. Fine. But this roaring keeps people away from Am Yisrael, keeps them at a distance. They know that if they mess with Am Yisrael, their God is going to come after them. This language, this pasuk here, Adonai mimaro mishag, umimon kodsho yiten kolo, sha'og yishag al nevehu. Last week I taught you Peshat according to Rashi. Rashi says that the word she'aga is used 3 times. Right? Am I right? Yishag, sha'og, yishag. Says Rashi, Hare Gimel, there are 3 of them. So you learn the night is made up of 3 watches from this. Tell me another way that you can break up this pasuk into 3 without using the word she'aga as 3 roars. Break up the pasuk differently from me. Find me 3 things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does in this pasuk. Look at it. Somebody be brave and break up this pasuk for me. Let me help you out. Shita mekubetzet writes the following. Adonai mimarom nishag. HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars from above. Number one. Umimon kodsho yiten kolo. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will raise his voice from above. Number two. Sha'o gishag al navehu. Number three. He will roar over his home. That's number three. So it's not because the pasuk uses the word shaga 3 times, but because there are 3 things happening here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is raising his voice. That teaches us the number 3. Does it make a difference? It doesn't make a difference. But I want you, when you read something, to remember 2 things. One, there are multiple ways to read one text and still reach the same conclusion. And number 2, Rashi may be peshat because he's on the page. But it's very important when reading through any text, don't just look at the mefarshim that are printed in the book. Look at other chachamim who are able to explain the same thing according to pshat in a different way. The Tzlach. Tzlach, again, one of my favorite works that ever came out of Ashkenaz. The Tzlach, he asks the following question. Rabbi Eliezer, it's really nice this pasuk you brought. HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars 3 times. Where in the pasuk does it say that there are 3 watches in the night? You agree with the question? Rabbi Eliezer is telling us there are 3 watches in the night, and in every watch HaKadosh Baruch Hu roars. Where does it say that? Very good. Rabbi Yosef, very good. That's exactly right. It's a derasha, meaning the 3 watches are not mentioned at all. Rabbi Eliezer understands on his own that there are 3 things happening at night, 3 roars that are happening at night, so the number 3 must correspond to the other 3 that's happening at night, and those are the 3 watches. This is a derasha. And because of that, he's using his own creativity to reach this conclusion. Very good. That's the correct answer. I wanted to answer a few more questions, and because I started late, I'm going to call it a night on the right time. Chamor no'er. We mentioned the first sign is a donkey braying, no'er. No'er, I just mentioned to you last week, the Aruch. He writes that no'er is the word in Hebrew for the sound a donkey makes. It doesn't mean anything more than that's what she'aga is to a lion. No'er is to a donkey. What barking is to a dog, no'er is to a donkey. Correct? That's the name of that sound. I asked you one question about singular and plural. Someone help tell me what that question was.
It says the donkey is singular, dogs are plural, and woman is singular.
Okay, very good. We said that the first sign is a donkey braying, one donkey. The second sign is dogs howling. Dogs howling is plural, not a dog which howls, dogs howling. Kilavim tzo'akim. The third, a baby nurses from his mother, 1. A woman speaks with her husband, 1. Those are singular. Why the dogs are in plural and the first and last are singular? Someone help me out here. What ideas that you heard, that you thought of?
Because as soon as one dog starts, all the dogs start.
Very good. So dogs are kind of like babies. When one starts, they all follow afterwards. Okay. So then it should just say 1, because once he starts, everybody starts. This answer is found again in the writings of the Magid Taluma. It pains me when people only study the Kabbalistic writings of certain Chachamim, and they ignore entirely the writings they gave us about Pipshat, real good books, real solid works. I'm sure that if you ask people who spend their whole life studying the Bnei Sachar and Chassidut, and you ask them about the book of Magid Taluma, they don't even know what you're talking about. Almost positive. Magid Taluma says, Chamor no'er, a donkey brays, a baby nurses, a woman speaks with her husband. All you need is 1 donkey braying to know that this time has come. You only need one baby nursing to know the time has come. You only need one woman speaking with her husband to know the time has come. By dogs, there's all kinds of reasons a dog barks. A dog barks because the mailman is coming. A dog barks because you're knocking on the front door. A dog barks because he's hungry. A dog barks he wants to go outside to the bathroom. Dogs bark for all kinds of reasons. So how do you know when a dog is just barking or when it's the time that the dogs are barking? Because if one dog does it, it's not a proof. But if all the dogs in the streets are barking, that's exactly the time. That is the Shmuah Hashniya, that's the second watch. That's the answer, says Magi Talmud. Now he wants to use this as a source, and here, don't hate on me, pet lovers. Listen, I have pets, I have birds, lizards, don't. This one I don't have yet. He uses this as a proof that a person shouldn't raise a dog. Chaim seem to have a decree that a person should not raise an evil dog in his home. I once studied this together. No, it doesn't make any difference with who. I'm not clear. Chaim said you can't have a dog. An evil dog. A dog that bites people. A dog that scares people. The Chaim were afraid of a woman who's pregnant and she sees a dog that's about to attack her. She'll drop her baby. She'll have a miscarriage. They bite people. They hurt people. Those kind of dogs, you're not allowed to raise them. By the way, are you allowed to have anything dangerous around you? I was once with him, someone's home, and they had this statue, like a metal bronze, statue that had a sharp point on top of it. It's a decoration. You go to people's homes, they have all kinds of decorations. It's a decoration. And Rav Peretz asked the landlord, how much can I pay you to buy that from you? I thought it was very unusual how Rav Peretz wanted to buy. Rav Peretz doesn't care about these statues. Why do you want one? And then I said, maybe Rav Peretz doesn't want because it's like an idol. It's like an image. Who knows what it is? Some kind of avodah zarah. I asked Rav Peretz. I said, no, it's not avodah zarah. I don't even want it. I want to buy it so I can throw it in the trash. So why want to throw it in the trash? He said, you see that sharp point? One day somebody's going to walk by here. A kid is going to come. They're going to fall. They're going to poke their eye out. This is dangerous to have in somebody's house. I know they're not going to throw it away, so I want to buy it from them so I can throw it away. How much money do you have to waste in order to do a mitzvah? Not waste, spend. A lot of money. That's what Rav Peretz wanted to do. He wanted to spend his money to buy something he didn't want in order to throw it away so the landlord wouldn't have suffering that they lost money because it was dangerous. Think about it. So he says from here, Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch of Dinov, that if you had a dog at home, then Chachamim will talk about the dog that you have at home. But you don't have a dog at home. The dogs are only in the streets, many dogs in the streets. Because of that, you shouldn't have a dog. Now, I don't know that's a proof to anything. But he wrote it in there. And I thought I would mention it because it's probably relevant to many people who've had this conversation, whether they should have dogs, they shouldn't have dogs. Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch of Dinov wanted to use this Gemara to tell you you shouldn't raise a dog in your house. Okay. We have a few more questions left. They're not going to be done tonight. I'm going to ask you, Marlene, how many questions did we answer so far?
We have 13. I think we answered about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, at least 6 of them.
Yeah, so almost half the questions. B'ezrat Hashem, in the next class, I'm going to answer all the rest of them so that we finish this Al Pi Pashat, and I'm going to start peeling back more layers of this Gemara. But please, what I said today, it took a lot of work to come up with all of these. Farshim here, I didn't find them on my own. There are different books that I used to find these things, but it's important when you learn the Gemara to learn it well, to learn each word, to learn each phrase, to ask questions, not to stop. Don't take things at face value. Dig a little more. B'ezrat Hashem, I'm asking you for the next week that we won't be having a shiur next Thursday night. But in 2 Thursdays from tonight, we'll be having a shiur. I'm out of town next week. That's the reason. I'm just not sure that I'll get back on Thursday in time for our shiur. So I don't want to promise and then cancel. We'll have a shiur in 2 weeks from tonight. And then 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to cover all the rest of the questions. And I asked you that you do what you did this last week. I saw many of you reach out to me with questions and you were looking at things. Take those questions and keep answering them until the next shiur. B'ezrat Hashem, I hope to bring you some of the answers. Sha'alu b'metzudati that came up in my net as well. B'ezrat Hashem. Everyone should have a beautiful evening. Leah tov.